Thank you for joining me again here at the Real ResQ Podcast, part of the Vertical Podcast Network known as Helicast. You can go to verticalhelicast.com to check out all of the Vertical Magazine podcasts that we have there, including the Hangar Z podcast, the Helicopter podcast, Valor Flight Crew podcast, and Vertical MRO podcast. That's right, there's like 3 of them there. Epic. Anyway, go check it out, verticalhelicast.com. Now let's take a moment to say thank you to our sponsors for this episode. Switlick Survival Products, manufacturing the highest quality safety and survival products for aviation, marine, and military markets. Check them out at switlick.com. Airbus, pioneering sustainable aerospace for a safe and united world. Check them out at airbus.com. Ready Bar, 1 bar equals 1 meal. Go to getreadybar.com and on checkout, punch in the promo code RESQ10 for 10% off. Check them out at getreadybar.com. As always, I got to shout out the realresqstore.com, where we have a ton of swag to represent this podcast. Go check it out at therealresqstore.com. It is now time to get into our next episode. Here are some cool fun facts about our next guest. Once, he drove from Cape Town in South Africa to North Cape of Norway. He occasionally plays the piano at parties, and his dog, Toby, loves to sing along. He lived in the Gobi Desert in Mongolia for almost a year. Man, that's awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Mr. Brendan O'Neill. My name is Jason Quinn. I am United States Coast Guard Rescue Swimmer number 500. These are my rescues and rescues from those of us that put our lives on the line every day so others may live. This is the Real ResQ Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Real ResQ Podcast. Thank you for joining me today. We have another guy from the United Kingdom. His name, Mr. Brendan O'Neill. He's a drone officer of the Mountain Rescue England and Wales teams. Brendan, hello. How are you?
Morning, Jason. Great to meet you and great to be on the show.
Hey, thank you so much for joining me. Actually, I should go even further and deeper into that title. I know it's a super long one, but you're the drone lead for the Derby Mountain Rescue Team as well. So I think it's all hand in hand, but it just makes you a leader in 2 sections.
So in England and Wales, we have, I think we're up to 47 separate mountain rescue teams now. About 20, 25 of those have some sort of drone capability. My local operational team, where I actually go out and do my real search and rescue, is the Derby Mountain Rescue Team. So we're based sort of in the central of England in an area called the Peak District. In that region, we've got a local group of about 7 teams, and 3 of those have drones. So I actually run the Derby Mountain Rescue drone section, but we quite often work alongside the other teams if we have a large search on to pull in other resources.
Yeah, man. Wow. That's so cool. Like, a shout out to Harry Harrison. He's the one that connected you and I together. He works over at the Penrith Mountain Rescue Team. So another one of the many teams that you guys have out there in the Lake District in that area. But I'm really excited because all of these stories that are coming to us from that area are so different. It's why I love doing this podcast, because it's just cool. So I appreciate you coming on and join me. I think you're my first official drone officer. That's cool.
I'm actually the first official drone officer for Mountain Rescue England and Wales. It's with it being an emerging technology, a number of teams have been using it. We started using drones probably 7 or 8 years ago. It's taken a little time to filter through to the majority of the teams. So as I say, quite a few of the teams have been flying, but it was back in 2023, the national body, as in Mountain Rescue England and Wales, decided it was substantial enough of a topic to actually have its own dedicated officer looking after the topic. So I liaise with all the local and national police forces. I'll liaise with the fire service, We have to do quite a lot of stuff with the regulator because obviously we're flying in controlled airspace sometimes. So it's the national role is really coordinating all of the higher level sort of topics we need to look at, whereas the work I do locally with the Derby Mountain Rescue Team is the 2 o'clock in the morning, getting dragged out of bed, go and search for somebody who's got missing type work.
Yeah. All right. So I should emphasize this. Like the majority of the people that listen to this podcast are in some sort of aviation world. And like you throw out the word drone and rescue and they're like, oh, it's like nails on a chalkboard. It just doesn't equate. It's like, no, you're taking our jobs. I don't think so. I'm going to throw this out there. My opinion, I don't think drones are going to be able to take over what we can do as people to rescue people. They can help, but I don't think they can take it over. What are your thoughts?
It's a different role. Obviously, we tend to fly much lower and closer into the ground. So if you need to search a really large area, which quite often we do, particularly if somebody's mobile, the drone isn't ideally suited for that because there's only so much ground space we can cover from the drone. Where it does come into its own is where we're searching really specific areas where we have a good idea that the person is in there, but they might be difficult to find. So we can go in lower. We can have a look under the tree canopy. We've obviously got a lot of thermal capability now, so we can get into those little nooks and crannies. Whereas the manned aviation can still cover much more ground than we can in a given amount of time. So yes, definitely, and we work quite closely with the manned aviation assets. So whenever we fly, before we even lift off the ground, the first thing we do is do a series of notifications out to those manned aviation assets who might either be passing through our patch or involved in the same task. So we always inform the police air service, so the helicopter and air spotter planes. We always inform the air ambulance because it's quite often they're on the same job as us. And if we're flying in somewhere where we know there's military activity, we'll also inform the low flying guys up at the military. So just so they know that we're in that airspace and maybe they'll keep them a couple hundred feet higher.
Perfect. So what I got out of that is I'm not going to lose my job. That's good.
No.
Yeah.
Not yet anyway.
Not yet.
Come back in 10 years' time and ask me. We'll see.
Maybe. Somebody's still got to go get the patient out. Like they're not going to hook themselves up. So I mean, you're going to need me.
Yeah.
Maybe not in 10 years, but
those long range searches aren't massively suited to drones at the moment. There's obviously we've got endurance limits. Most of the drones will only stay airborne maybe 45 minutes for the handheld stuff we fly. There is bigger stuff being developed. I know our Coast Guard now uses a much larger drone called a Seagull, which is probably about 4 meters, and that can stay airborne for 7 or 8 hours, and it's probably got a couple of 100-kilometer range. So it's moving, but at the moment there's definitely two roles there.
That's good. That's good information. 4 meters. That's a big drone. Holy cow! I wonder how much what the payload is. I wonder what they can lift.
It's interesting because the National Police Air Service, who run all the police helicopters and fixed-wing planes, they're also looking to get into that same space. Because one of the things is the cost to run these assets. So if we think a helicopter is costing, I think in the region of £3,000 an hour, and you've got 2 guys up there, some of the drones that they're looking at have got the same payload capability as the helicopter in terms of the same sensors, but they can be flown remotely at probably a quarter of the cost. So it's getting that balance right for where do we actually need a long range spotter plane versus could a drone stay up for 8 hours, which the helicopters normally can't do.
Right.
So
you do the drone for the search, then send the helicopter out to do the actual rescue.
Or we send guys in on foot, depending on the location,
Oh man, there's a fine line of like, are we going down a good path or not? I'm okay, whatever. You know what? I like to see the technology move in a forward direction. It's always nice to see. I personally like it because like everything needs to progress in a forward manner. It just has to. So. Yeah. And there's such great stuff that's coming.
Yeah, it's interesting because the technology is definitely progressing, and what we have to deal with certainly in the UK is the regulation. The regulation isn't keeping up with the technology at the moment. It's lagging behind slightly. So as an example, when we fly, even if there's a risk to life, we have to keep the drone in sight out to a maximum of 500 meters. So straight away, we've only really got roughly a little bit less than a square kilometre we can search in a single flight with the drone. So when we are developing our search techniques, it's primarily driven by that regulation, as in wherever we search from, the pilot has to be able to see the drone the whole way through the flight. Whereas the drones we're flying, some of them will actually quite happily fly 10, 12, 15 kilometers away.
Wow.
But the regulation means we can't do that. So over time it will develop.
Yeah.
But at the moment, it's that regulation rather than the technology which is driving how we have to sort of approach our searches.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of random question. Do you have like a beacon or something off there so that it would send out a notification to other aircrafts or?
Not at the moment. It's not far away though. I know they've implemented this in the States at the moment, which is basically a drone identification system. So your drone will actually broadcast its position and its altitude.
Yeah, like a TCAS, I can't remember what TCAS stands for, but like it just sends out a beacon with a tail number or whatever.
Yeah, so it's not implemented in the UK yet. There's talk about them bringing that into the regulations next year. So it's still going to take a couple of years to feed through because obviously you've got all the legacy kit out there flying, which doesn't have that facility on there. So at the moment, we are down to that manual notification to the other air users that we are flying in their area.
Interesting.
It is interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think in the UK there are 100,000 plus, maybe more drones at the moment, and only a small percentage of people. Most of those are being flown recreationally. And people just don't do this notification piece. So it's a bit pot luck. If there is a low-flying military jet coming through, or an air ambulance, or a police helicopter operating at a low level, it's very unlikely they're going to be able to see a drone. Certainly, size that most people fly. So that's one of the reasons we try and de-risk our flights by letting those guys know in advance.
Yeah, that's good. It's good stuff. Yeah, I appreciate the little tangent that we've had in the opening here, but I gotta circle back. Let's learn a little bit more about Brendan. Matt, where are you from, and how did you get into search and rescue?
So I'm actually from northeast England, from Newcastle. So for those that don't know that, anybody who lives in Newcastle is called a Geordie. So if you hear the term Geordie, and it comes with this accent, that comes for free.
Love it.
I moved down to the Midlands probably 20 years ago with work, and we sort of settled down here. So I've been here since just after 2000. As a trade, the last too many years, I've been an IT software developer, working for big utilities companies. Always had a love for the outdoors, always done lots of hiking, lots of camping, that sort of thing. And I've done quite a lot of international travel as well. So I spent a few months sailing across the Atlantic. I drove from Cape Town up to the North Cape of Norway one year, just for something to do.
Wow.
And then, as I say, moved to the Midlands and settled down. And that's when I basically found out about the local rescue team. Now, that sort of coincided with, I'll be honest, I'd been doing drones before I did the mountain rescue. So I'd always had a GoPro bolted to the front of my kayak or the mountain bike, whatever I was doing. And then
buddy, that sounds like me.
Probably 2012, I think 2013, the first drones came out that were sort of affordable. They had no cameras on them. You had to bolt your GoPro on. So that was a marriage made in heaven for me. I could fly around with the GoPro now and annoy people. But and that was about the same time that I got wind of the local rescue team. So I sort of approached them and joined up. Partly really to see if the drones could be of any use in that scenario. The rescue work we probably do maybe 20-25% of our jobs are actually searches for people. The other 75% are more like known locations where somebody's broken their leg or got stuck on a cliff somewhere. But it was obviously that search part of it was where we thought the drones would have the most benefit initially. So we started developing our capability back in 2017, and ourselves and our neighbouring team up in Buxton were the first teams to get that. It was called a permission for commercial operations at the time. If you wanted to fly non-recreationally, you had to have this certain ticket. So we went down that route. Initially, it was quite slow to get going because the kit had really limited battery life. So it took a few years to actually get it accepted into the team, and it's come around now. So the first thing we deploy on a search is generally, right, can we get the search dogs out? Can we get the drone out? So it's certainly in the last
like top one and two things like on a search. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's, as I say, that probably turned on its head 2.5 years ago when we got thermal capability. We got long range zoom. We got things that could fly in the rain. So we were able to deploy a lot more. And now we'll quite often deploy just with the drone initially, whilst the rest of the team is getting sort of stood up and the plans being made.
No kidding.
So that was all the local stuff. And then 2 years ago, this national role came up, so I applied for that. So now I've got 47 teams across the country, all independent.
That's funny.
So I help coordinate their activity from a drone perspective in terms of how we operate, where we operate. As I say, that working together with the police and the other services, and initially comes through the national group, and then we filter things down to the teams.
Wow,
it's quite a lot of it's quite full on at the moment, both locally with the operational stuff and nationally with pulling the national side of things together.
Right on. Oh, that's cool. Good for you, man. All right, so now I love this question. Do you remember your very first rescue?
I do. It didn't have a particularly good output, unfortunately.
Okay,
it was.
It happens. I get it.
It happens. Yeah. Now, a lot of because of where we're based, a lot of the searches we do are actually in support of the police for vulnerable people. So either despondent or elderly patients with dementia. For our team, they form the backbone of our search activity. Unfortunately, the very first person I found was a young guy who committed suicide in the woods.
I'm sorry. So,
yeah, it was a bit of a shocker, as I say, and I think that was probably the first time I'd ever seen anybody who'd been deceased. So, and it was sad, and it was such a young guy, really. But unfortunately, after time, you sort of grow accustomed to this sort of thing.
Right. Yeah. You do. It's that dark humor side of us.
It is.
There's
a lot of support locally within the team and nationally for people.
Agreed.
I mean, if people, obviously, once we've done the find, there's some investigation the police need to go, and then we generally end up having to recover the deceased as well. But team members aren't forced to go into that sort of role if they don't want to. So, it's some people handle it better than others, and obviously we get successful outcomes as well. So that was my first find. And that was actually before we started using the drones in anger, really.
Gotcha.
So that was literally a 3 o'clock in the morning job, traipsing through some woods, looking up.
And that's where you come across?
Yeah.
I'm actually, you know what? I'm really impressed that you continued on helping with this search and rescue and volunteer team, because a lot of people, when they come across something like that, they're like, yeah, this is not what I signed up for. I don't want this again. And they walk. And I took respect. Like I got no problem with anybody that does it. It's not for everybody, but like the majority of people, and I'll use this as kind of a generalized term, you join search and rescue to be the rescuer to save the day, and everybody goes home happy, and then you get something like that, especially on your first one, you're like, oh man. So it's
there is that. I mean, the way most of our guys approach it is, obviously the family are still there. They need to know what's happened. They need to get their loved ones back. So yes, we haven't had a successful result in terms of finding somebody still alive, but it helps to bring that closure to the family. So, that's what makes it okay for us to carry on doing what we're doing.
Right on. Yeah, well, you know what? Thank you for continuing on, because you've had an amazing career. So I'll tell you what, let's fast forward just a little bit. Do you remember your first live save?
I do indeed.
Oh, okay. So, I like this one.
Again, this was pre-drones, and this one was an elderly dementia patient she'd been out with her husband, come home, he'd gone in to open the house up, and she got out of the car and disappeared. Now,
wait a minute, hold on. They went home, he went inside, and she just got out of the car and walked away?
Just walked, yeah. Now,
so he came back out of the house and be like, honey, where'd you go?
Yeah. So we were called out pretty much straight away because I think it was getting into the evening when this happened. It was a midweek. It was in holiday period, so we'll turn out 40 people to a search like that. On this occasion, we probably only had just over half that number. So we went out. We actually went out in pairs instead of teams of 5 or 6, which is what we normally do. So we went off. I was out with the team leader, and we searched for probably 6 or 7 hours. No sign of the lady. And then we came to an old heritage railway line where they run steam trains up and down. And there's a stream branched off from there. So I said, look, I'll take the railway line. You take the stream, and we'll meet up in a mile further down where the two come back together. So off we went, searching along, no sign of it. Got back to the road, and it was starting to get quite warm now. The sun was coming up. So I sat down for a drink, and I could hear a conversation. So I'm looking around. It's sort of 5 o'clock in the morning. And just set back from the road, there was a couple of old railway cottages. So I thought, maybe somebody's got the radio on, getting up early. Sat down, had another drink. Then I heard this conversation again. What's going on here? I'll go up and see if it's maybe some people from the village coming to help with the search. And as I stood up, I seen what I thought was a rock 5 minutes earlier. And as I stood up, what I thought was a rock moved. Whoa! And basically, I wandered up. This old lady, she'd walked probably 3 miles. And unfortunately, she'd fallen in a ditch in the dark with the stream running through it. And she'd been lying in a ditch for about 6 hours, up to her sort of chest in water.
Oh my gosh.
Now, normally when we find somebody, we've got 5 or 6 people to deal with the situation. And at this point, I was still on my own. And so I'm on the radio, and this was just after I'd found a couple of not successful searches. I get on the radio and say, right guys, I found the casualty, and there was silence because they thought, oh no, it's another dead one. But I said, right, this one's alive. And they're going, where are you? And I go, oh, damn, where am I? So I'm having to do all of the comms, the first aid and everything. Now, because she'd been in there for so long, lying almost flat, I didn't dare stand her up. Because obviously, if you stand somebody up and they're severely hypothermic, there's a risk all the warm blood actually floods down at their feet, and there's potential for a heart attack. So I'm kneeling down in the stream, trying to lift this lady out and keep her as flat as possible and get her on the bank. Now, it felt like an hour before anybody turned up. I think in reality, it was probably only 4 or 5 minutes. But it was... And the lady was just chatting away to me the whole time, as if nothing had happened, with no idea what sort of predicament she was in. So... It wasn't really to get her back in the ambulance and hand her over, I tell you.
Brendan, well done, sir. Oh my goodness. I can totally see that too. You sit down and have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and just listening to the brook and the wilderness. No, nothing's around you. You're just, wow, this is so serene. And then you hear that conversation. You're like, what the? Oh my gosh. Oh, that's great.
Yes, and then it was back home for breakfast and back home for breakfast and back out to work again. It was a strange start to the day.
Oh my goodness! Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah,
I think one of the things I probably should have mentioned earlier on, Jason, is that the whole organisation, MREW, Mountain Rescue in Wales, has about sort of maybe getting up to 3,000 people working in it, but every person there is voluntary. Yeah, so. All of the guys going out and doing this sort of stuff day in, day out, nobody's getting paid for it. Most of them are having to take time out of work. They're having to take time out of family events, which goes down really well. And
So there was sarcasm in that statement. I heard it.
And on top of that, we're all self-funded as well, so we don't get any state funding. Yeah. So all of the money needed to keep that team running in terms of vehicles and fuel and equipment, that's all fundraised from the teams as well. So it's outside of the actual operational stuff that there's still quite a lot to do to keep these teams running,
which is amazing to me. Yeah, Harry and I talked about it.
You get one good rescue, and one live rescue a year makes everything worthwhile.
Yeah, and I hope that people that are listening here can really you understand that and you guys help get a few more donations and a little bit more to help support with everything that you guys do, because I think it's amazing. And I look at some of the events and some of the operations that we have in the States, and they're government funded. So there is no, they have the volunteer, but they also have the funded. So the fact that all of you guys, all the teams up there are all volunteer and you need to raise money to keep that team going is incredible. And you still do it, and you find a way to get it done. That's awesome.
Yeah. And that's bringing the drone side of things back into it. That's part of the issue we have. So a typical team, one of our rescue teams, will maybe cost £50,000 a year to run. Now, obviously, you've got to renew their vehicles and all that sort of thing. So when you go to one of those teams and say, right, here's some drone capability, it's going to cost you probably £10,000 to get a team up and running. A lot of teams just go, we can't afford that.
Yeah.
So that's one of the major sort of hurdles our teams have at the moment to getting fully into drone use is the actual cost of it.
We're going to divert real quick to thank our sponsors.
Switlik. No mission is the same. Why should your suit be? Introducing a new custom dry suit experience. Choose your fabric, colors, neck and wrist seals, zippers, pockets, collars, and so much more. Intelligent measuring prompts ensure the most tailored fit. Brought to you by Switlik Survival Products. For more information, visit us at www.switlik.com.
So what is a reasonable drone commercially priced is still a huge capital outlay for most of our teams.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about this then, right? So it costs about £10,000, which is a little more than the dollar. So we'll go with the UK pound. I got you right now. Okay. I don't know what the conversion is at the moment, but
it's about $12,500, $13,000. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
£10,000.
Yeah.
I'll keep it in pounds just for you today. All right. So £10,000, you guys have to raise that. So let's talk about some of the benefits. So are there rescues that you've been called on that really turned out as a major bonus? And I'm talking like saving multiple time and personnel to go out to find somebody, where the drone went out, did its job, and now it cut down on half of the time or half of the assets that were actually needed. Do you have any stories like that?
Yeah. So it's two things for us. There's the time. Obviously, depending on the terrain, we can search. If it's open ground, we can search it much faster than a foot team could. So there's that time saving. The other thing is where it's dangerous terrain, we can put the drone in there first and do a first pass on that terrain without putting any of our team into danger. I mean, we've got a bit of a saying in the team. It's in terms of the way we approach a job. It's self first, then team, and then the casualty. Yeah. So you've got to look after yourself, because there's no point a potential rescue turning into a real one for multiple team members. So the drone lets us put that in, and I think we're going to talk about wildfires later on. That's another aspect where we can put the drone in and de-risk to persons. But one story I do have, we have a large crag on our patch, which is about 150 foot high, vertical, and then there's another 200 or 300 foot of really loose, slippy terrain underneath that, which is all overgrown. So we had a job last year. Again, unfortunately, it was another suicide. Now we had search dogs out there. To search that area on foot was probably going to take about 4 hours. We put the drone over, and I mean, there was some luck involved in this one. It was 6 o'clock in the morning. We put the drone up there. We were flying on thermal and daylight, and I picked up 1 or 2 pixels of heat in the lower area of the crag, which is where it's really dangerous to search. Repositioned the drone, and we managed to confirm that it was the guy we were looking for. Now that took us, it was just under 3 minutes to find him. Whereas even the guys who were on the ground said to have searched that area safely was going to take us 3 or 4 hours with the team we had. So we aren't always that lucky. We were in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, but still, that's incredible.
Yeah, the guy, unfortunately, we think it died maybe 8 or 9 hours previously, but there was still enough heat to come out on the thermal against the background. So it's, as I say, that's a prime example where, in fact, that one saved both. That saved time, as in, it's very rare you're going to find anybody in 3 minutes.
Right.
Plus, it was on dangerous terrain, so it meant we could pinpoint exactly where the guy was. And then when the foot teams came in, I was able to guide them in the safest route down to where he was. So it ticked both boxes in that scenario.
Wow. Side note question is, do you have a way to capture like a latitude, longitude? Yeah, so agreed coordinates to send in and say, okay, this is, yep, go ahead.
Yeah, so where the kit we're flying at the moment, it's not massively expensive. I mean, for some teams it is, but the drone we're flying at the minute is about £5,000 or £6,000 worth. Now that does have a laser pointer on the payload, so anything I see within about a 1,200 meter range, I can point at, and it'll give me the lat long for that position.
Yeah.
So even if I'm flying the boundary of my visual line of sight, I can still search beyond that, and if I find anything, I can mark it up with a laser, and that gives me a coordinate that I can then move the guys in on. So what we actually do is, when we are searching, the first thing we ever do before we lift off is actually start screen recording on the controller. So everything the pilot can see when we're flying is recorded on the controller. So if we need to go back and review something, maybe we missed something or we want to double check anything, we can just rewind that screen recording. Now, we always fly with the laser pointer running as well. So if we do, maybe after the flight or even the next day, if we go and review that footage, if we spot something in that phase of it, because the laser is always running, it gives us the actual coordinates of what we're looking at, even after the event.
Yeah.
So it makes it so much easier, because up until recently, the drone would give you its own position, but that might be 600-700 meters away from the casualty, and you'd have to do some schoolboy trigonometry to work out how high you were, the angle of the drone, and all that sort of stuff. Whereas now we can just point at it, and in fact, if it's something we want to come back later, we can point at it and drop a laser pin on it, and that'll stay there. We can have dozens of pins set up on a search. So if we found something that was a potential area, we can mark it in red, say, and we can send a foot team in there. If we find something we want to discount, we can mark it in yellow. So then when you look at the drone, either in real time or afterwards, you can see all the items of interest that you've already discounted or need further investigation on. So that laser pointer has made a huge difference to how effective we are once we do identify something. It gives us the altitude, so we know the altitude the drone at. It gives us the altitude of what we're pointing at with the target. So we can, if we're on really steep terrain, the grid reference it's useful, but it's quite hard if you're working on a 70-degree slope to find an exact grid reference. Whereas we can say, right, what we're looking at is actually 37 meters below the top of the crag. We can also do it that way. So it's
So do you have? Is it live or like a live screen? So you're looking at it live on a, like, I guess, a computer monitor or some sort of screen where you're at.
Yeah. So we have a dedicated controller for each drone, which is it's got a live high definition video feed coming back to it. What we're also doing now is, if we're working locally with our control vehicle, we can stream the footage directly to them using HDMI transmitters. That works over about 150 feet. So if we're working in range of the van, somebody can be sitting in the control van seeing exactly what we're seeing on the screen.
Wow.
We also have an option for live streaming across to the internet. So we can have somebody sitting at home with a cup of coffee looking at the footage.
Holy smoke.
The only problem with that at the moment is we're quite often working in remote areas which don't have any phone signal at all, never mind an internet signal. So we tend to deploy as a local team who will do their own searching. But if we can get the images streamed out to somebody else, we will do.
Wow. So the reason I asked that is because you're getting a live feed right out of the drone with a laser pointer for the coordinates, and then you can literally talk a team in through the radio and be like, hey, turn here, go down here, stop there, turn right, face right, no, your other right, your military right. And then
and sometimes if we're working in really sort of gnarly overgrown terrain, the guys, I mean, we've had incidents where people have had to abseil down at the casualty, and I'm guiding them in, and they're maybe 4 or 5 feet away before they can actually see them. But of course, from the drone, I can see them coming down. I can see the casualty. So we'll quite often take over the comms for that part of the incident, so we can get people there as quickly as possible.
Holy cow, Brendan, that's freaking awesome. That's amazing.
It is. Part of the problem is, though, everybody thinks you put the drone up in the air and you find your casualty straight away. It doesn't work like that. So your intelligence has got to be right to start with, because if you're looking in the wrong place, it doesn't matter if you've got a 1,000-pound drone or a 20,000-pound drone, you're not going to find them. So the first thing to do is we've really got to get that intelligence right to make sure there's a higher probability that the person we're looking for is actually in the area where we're going to task the drone. And even then, I mean, I've been on searches where we've searched maybe for 6 or 7 hours and haven't found anybody because we just weren't looking in the right area. So we also have a second approach to searching with the drones, which is much more sort of forensic in the way it works.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of drones are used for surveying, sort of building 2D or 3D maps. So probably 4 or 5 years ago, we started looking at, is there any way we can use those techniques to improve our confidence when we're searching for people? So most of the DJI drones, you can, even when you're flying, you can pull up a satellite image and draw an area on that image that you want to search. The drone will then work out the most efficient way to search it and effectively fly a grid pattern over that area and photograph it all in detail.
I was just going to ask this. Yeah, okay.
So that's one way we've been doing it up until recently. What we've done now locally within Mountain Rescue England and Wales is some of our guys up in the Lake District have gone a step beyond that, and we've had a search tool for a number of years that pulls up a topographic map of the area in detail. And previously, we've marked out different coloured polygons on there, and we printed those out, and the guys have gone out on foot with those maps and said, right, I need a search area A, 1, 2, and 3. We've developed that further, so the guys on the lakes have basically, they now pull in really, really detailed elevation data, so every 2 meters, we have a really accurate spot height to within a centimetre or two. So the software knows you've marked this area that you want me to search, and it now knows exactly what shape that is, really, really accurately. So what we can do now is we can just say, right, I want the drone to fly that area. It then basically produces a specific waypoint flight that covers that whole area and keeps the drone perfectly positioned above the terrain. So even if you're flying in really difficult terrain, the drone can fly, let's say you want to fly at 100 meters, it'll fly exactly above that whole terrain and follow that height the whole way around. Now, The clever bit is, it photographs that whole area in detail. Now, so the video feed we get back as pilot it's an HD signal, it's 2 megapixels of video. The cameras on the drone are actually taking 48 megapixel still images.
Wow.
So typically, you've got 24 times as much information in a still image as you've got in the video feed. So when we've flown that area, we might come back with 100 or 120 photographs. We plug them back into the software, and it goes through every single image. Now, it knows where the image was taken. It knows the shape of the terrain it was photographing, and it looks for color anomalies in that image. So it looks for small groups of pixels which look like they shouldn't exist in the rest of the image. Now, it might find 100 or 200 of those for one search area, but you quickly discount 99% of them and flick through them. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's been, we had a job in Scotland where this was deployed for the first time, and the guy we were looking for was wearing a green jacket and black trousers, and he'd fallen off a crag in a really steep grassy hillside. So he was perfectly camouflaged, and he'd been missing for 7 weeks.
7 weeks he had been missing?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
The helicopters had been out, teams had been out on foot, dogs, all sorts of stuff, but it was quite nasty terrain where he was up in Scotland. But they put the drones out, and on the very first flight, it threw up an anomaly. And they looked at it and thought, what's that? It just looked like more grass on the hillside. The tool, because it knows the exact shape of the terrain, can give you an exact grid reference from a still image as to where that anomaly is, to within a meter. So they then sent another drone back out with a bigger zoom camera on to see what that anomaly was. And unfortunately, it was the guy we'd been looking for. But again, like the other one, it brought that closure.
Yeah.
He could have been there where he was. He could have been there for years, because the search had been sort of wound down after 4 or 5 weeks, because everything had been done that could have been done at that point. Now, that's a little bit more involved, and it's a very different way of searching. So we'll tend to deploy, depending on the terrain we're searching and the backstory, really. We decide whether to fly it manually, whether to fly it automatically, or whether to do a bit of a hybrid.
Holy smoke.
So we did last summer we did a search for another dementia patient, She'd been missing 23 hours, I think. I think there were some other medical issues as well. One of the other local teams, it was on their patch, so they'd been out for sort of 12 or 15 hours before they asked if they could bring our drone in. We went out, we searched for another 5 or 6 hours, and then as people were packing up to go home, we were tasked to go and search an area a couple of kilometres further down the valley. So we went down, flew the first flight, we flew an automated grid pattern. Now, when the drone's doing that grid pattern, you can still see the video feed, so there's a chance you'll see them in real time, but we know we've got those still images coming through after the flight as a backup. Nothing found on the first flight, flew the second flight, nothing found. And just as the drone was coming back home to land, I spotted something shoot past in the corner of the screen. So I paused the mission, backed up, zoomed in, and it was the lady we were looking for. I think she'd actually heard the noise from the drone, and she'd been in the woods. So she came out to see what the noise was, saw the drone, pointed at us, and then turned around and went back into the woods. But I'd dropped a laser pin on her by this time, you see, so I knew exactly where she had been. And from the height, I could sort of circle the woods to make sure she didn't pop out anywhere else and wander off. And it took another 20, 25 minutes to get the team in there, but we'd got her in real time. But as a trial, when I got back to the control van, I then put the image set back through the software, and it found her on 3 previous occasions we'd flown over her.
Oh, wow.
So that gives us the confidence that if we don't find somebody when we're flying in real time, because we've got those high resolution images, we can use those as a backup after the event. And as I say, I think I've flown her over at 6 minutes, 9 minutes, and 12 minutes into the flight and not seen her. Partly because the drone was flying, she was stood under a tree, so she was only in frame for a fraction of a second.
Yeah.
So you can't just rely on flying dynamically in real time and guaranteeing you're going to find somebody, because it's so easy to miss somebody, particularly if you're flying at 400 feet. People are actually quite small on the ground. So we tend to use a mix of those techniques given the parameters of the search we're looking at.
That is incredible. It's actually kind of blowing my mind. Like, you can come back and take the card out of the drone, drop it into a computer, and AI and all the software will just be like, oh, look, here, this. That's insane.
The good thing with it is you don't have to be the drone pilot to do that part of it. Yeah, we can actually just swap memory cards out, and somebody back in the van can be doing that, trawling through the images while we go out and search the next area. Because quite often we'll have lots of areas to search in a day. So the workflow, if we've got people to do it, the workflow would be we just swap cards. Somebody else does the analysis part of it. And if they spot something, we're still probably only doing the next search area. So we can divert. If they say, look, I found somebody in this grid reference here, we can then relocate. But it's getting that workflow in place. And again, a lot of that depends on where you're working. If you're working totally remotely from the control vehicle, you have to be able to do that unseen.
Yeah.
So we tend to carry a rugged laptop with us. So if we know we're going to be out for sort of 3 or 4 hours, we can be analysing the images in real time. In pseudo real time as the next flight's progressing.
Yeah. Holy, wow! What a trip!
It is, and it's for me. It's really enhanced the confidence of drone searching, because until a couple of years ago, you'd go out and do a search. You'd come back, the police would be sitting there and say, right, where have you searched? So I'm saying, search this area here. They say, how confident are you that they're not in there? And I'd be reluctant to quote more than 50% if I've just flown manually.
Oh, yeah.
Relying on me to spot me or the observer to spot somebody in the image. Because there's lots going on. People are talking to you. You're looking at the drone. Even if you're just distracted for a couple of seconds, that might be, as was in this case with this lady, that might be your only chance of seeing her in the flight. So you've got to have a backup mechanism. So we use those still images, and as I say, we also use that screen recording. So if we're fairly confident somebody's in the area, we would go through all 3 phases to check that we haven't missed them and left them behind.
Wow, that's awesome. We're going to divert real quick to thank our sponsors.
Airbus. Airbus provides the most efficient helicopter solutions to its customers who serve, protect, save lives, and safely carry passengers in demanding environments. Its civil and military helicopters are flying all over the world, making missions possible. Visit airbus.com for more information.
So I kind of a couple other questions with that is we were talking about grid search and like search patterns. When you guys that's set up in the drone, do you do that? Do you set up the waypoints to do, okay, I'm going to do a ladder search, I'm going to do an expanding square, or is that already programmed into?
No. Again, it's down to this regulation and the fact that we can only search, I'm going to say, let's say a 600 meter by 600 meter grid. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. With that sort of relatively small area, we just carpet bomb it. We just say, right, we're just going to fly a grid, parallel grid, moving all the way through that search area. So
okay.
And all we have to do as pilots is draw the outline of the area we want to search, tell the software what height we want to search at, and it then determines how it's going to fly it. As in, is it going to fly north, south, or east, west, or whichever way. It works out the most efficient way to search that. Right
on. Wow. Oh, that is cool. Okay, another question with that, and I'm thinking like back in my I guess my world of helicopter rescue, we'll get a pattern, right? And the so coordination center will call us and be like, hey, this is where we need you to search. Here's your grid. Boom, go. And then next one, we're gonna overlap that pattern with where we're gonna overlap where we were, but we're gonna also search a new area. And then when that one's out, then we go to the next one. And are you guys doing the same thing? You get that one section and then, okay, then relocate. Now you're going to overlap, but we're going to do this section over here. Is it similar?
It's similar, yes. So using our own software, this tool is called MR Map, as in Mountain Rescue Map.
Of course it is. Awesome.
if we're searching, let's say we're searching a 2 square kilometers, yeah, and we split that up into 500 meter grids. Obviously, those grids all border each other. Yeah. Now, the way our software works is we overlap every photograph we take. Let's say we're flying a fairly basic grid. Every photograph we take overlaps all of its neighbors by, I think it's 60 or 66%.
Oh, wow. That's quite a bit.
Now, when you're flying at even 400 feet, if let's say somebody sat behind a wall, yeah, or under a tree, an openish tree, yeah, looking at them from straight down, you might not be able to see them, yeah.
Right.
But the next photograph back, because it's looking out at an angle, there's a chance you'll see them in the next image, yeah. So, doing the maths, basically any point in our search area should get photographed 9 times from different angles with that 60% overlap. It does mean you've got a few more photographs to process, but it's actually quite quick at photographing them, yeah. So that's for a given grid we're searching. As we move to the next grid, obviously it borders the one from before, so we're still getting that 60% overlap from one grid to the next. So we do, if we are searching multiple grids, we are naturally getting that overlap from one to the next because of the way that search pattern is structured.
That is outstanding. Outstanding, my friend. I love that. What do you know what the degree is of the picture? Like how big that cone degree is?
It varies from one drone to the next.
Okay.
So yeah, when we are, particularly if there's new drones coming into the market or teams are buying new drones, one of the first things we do is do effectively a calibration exercise to say, right, if we have this drone a meter off the floor, we measure how far it can actually see. Because the manufacturers do publish a field of view, but it's not always exactly accurate.
Okay.
So we'll actually go and we'll do a calibration flight and then some desk checking really to confirm. So typically, most of the drones are a 4x3 picture with roughly a 90-degree field of view, so 45 degrees each way.
45 on each side to make it a full 90. I get it.
Yeah.
Right on. Wow.
The other thing we can do is if we can actually take manual control of that as well using the app on the drone. So if we want to fly, let's say, a really flat area, we can set the camera to a fixed 60 degrees or 30 degrees, 45 degrees, and we can fly the grid that way if we need to. But generally, using our own software, it'll default, because it knows the shape of the terrain, it always tries and keeps the camera perpendicular to the terrain. And that also helps with the maths when we do find something. Knowing the shape of the ground and the fact that the camera is perpendicular, we can do a pretty good estimate of the coordinates of where that anomaly is to within a meter.
Wow, that is so cool.
Some people much cleverer than me wrote all the. I've seen the maths behind it. It's,
all the
I understand
all
the
the dots,
concept.
the matrix on the back end, all the code ready. It's ridiculous.
But
that's cool.
The good thing about it is because of where we work and how we work, it all runs locally. So there's no internet connectivity required at all. We can literally send somebody out the field with a relatively cheap drone and a laptop, and they can do this sort of forensic type searching on the area they're looking in without having to have any connectivity at all. So there's no cloud, there's no AI going on. It's all hard and fast pre-programmed and running locally on the machine.
Wow, man, that's just incredible.
Yeah.
That's cool.
As time goes on, I mean, we're already looking at possibly equipping some of the teams with maybe a mini Starlink type setup. So then we would be able to leverage some cloud-based sort of type functionality. But at the moment, it's working quite well, having it all executed locally.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like doing it that way. Another question. So you mentioned like multiple flights. How long does a battery usually last, and how many do you go out with?
Yeah. So when I first started, we used to get 5 or 6 minutes, which isn't very long at all.
Like on scene, 5 or 6 minutes?
5 or 6
total?
minutes in the air, yeah. That was total flight time.
Yeah, that's not much.
Yeah. Now, obviously, battery life has developed tremendously over the last 10 years. So our main operational drone now at the moment, it is a DJI drone. It's called an M30. We can safely get maybe 25 minutes with some contingency.
Okay.
Yeah. Those batteries are expensive though. So those batteries are, that drone, the batteries are about £600 a pair, and it needs to fly. Yeah. And they're quite heavy. So we have 5 pairs of batteries in our kit for the M30. So that gives us realistically maybe 2 hours flight time.
Okay.
So if we've got access to the vehicle, the benefit of them is they're quite quick to charge. So if we've got a vehicle nearby us, we can be, because we've got 5 sets, we can be recharging those as we're flying. So with the vehicle, we can stay airborne as long as the search controllers need us to, really. If we've had to hike out somewhere, though, battery life is a definite issue.
Yeah.
Because somebody has to carry them, and they're expensive. The newer drones we just got hold of, the M4T is the new one we've just taken on. That uses a single battery. It's £150 a battery. That has changed things now, because whereas previously, well, for the price of 1 pair of batteries on our existing drone, we can get 4 batteries for the new one. Yeah, and the batteries themselves are much lighter, and we get longer flight time on each battery. So
nice.
It's conceivable now that a team could go out with 10 fully charged batteries now, and it not be impossible to carry them. The drone itself is much lighter, so the drones are getting lighter, the batteries are getting longer and cheaper.
Yeah.
So that is going to help us operationally in terms of extending our flight times out in the field.
Right on. So 25 minutes you said right now, and then extend it a little bit more with the current
about
one.
35 to 40 with the new stuff we've just got hold of. So
that's really good. Yeah, that's nice.
Again, it all comes back into this: how are we searching? Because regulations say we have to say line of sight. Yeah.
Yeah.
Typically, 20 minutes will see us completely cover the area we're being tasked to fly.
Yeah.
So potentially now we can fly two areas on 1 battery, depending on the size of them. So the battery life is a big issue, and but we're getting there, and it is becoming more and more efficient.
Right on. Wow, that's cool. I really like this conversation, because I'm not into it. Like I would love to get into the drones. I've looked at purchasing some of my own, just for my own like GoPro stuff and to have around. But it's not that I just haven't. That's all there is to it. I just haven't done it yet. But you've kind of sparked this to be like, it's time for me to really get into this a little bit more, especially with everything that they can do.
Yeah, and to be fair, part of my national role is to try and encourage more teams to pick up that drone capability, really. So now one thing I'm not a drone evangelist. Yeah, drones, they've got a place and a time. Yeah, I'll be honest. I find drones quite annoying sometimes, particularly if it's not me flying them. And if there's one buzzing around you and you don't know who it is, they can be quite annoying. Yeah. So
you're like, bam, bam, bam.
So as I say, part of my role is to try and encourage those teams who maybe are thinking about it or maybe haven't even thought about it yet, just to show them the benefits. Yeah. Obviously, it costs money and it costs time to train the pilots up. Yeah. So where we find it works best is if you have one or two members in a team, who are really, really keen, because obviously I can't push teams into buying drones, but if it's coming from within and they're seeing the work that the other teams are doing, hopefully it'll start to rub off and permeate through the wider community. Because it would be great to have all of our teams having access to some sort of drone capability if they needed it, whereas at the moment that isn't the case. So sometimes they'll have to rely on the police or possibly some of the fire services in our areas have them, but it's they won't always deploy to the places we do.
Yeah, right on. All right, so now I'm going to divert to another question because you had mentioned it just briefly, like some fire stuff, and I know that you've done like flood rescue and not so much rescue, but mapping an area of where floods are at and where the fires are at. What does that entail? That's really like I've heard of guys and agencies and companies starting to do that in the States where they want to send drones out to take pictures of areas of where the damage is so they can have real-time footage and like actual, hey, this is what's affected. Go.
Yeah. So in the UK, flooding and obviously wildfire management sits with the fire service. Some of the fire services split up regionally as well. So some of the fire regions have a fairly effective drone capability, whereas some of them are a little bit behind the curve on that and either have no capability or fairly limited. So we work really closely with the fire service and have done for a number of years on water rescue. So a number of the mountain rescue teams also maintain a swift water rescue capability, and we quite often deploy those assets alongside the permanent resources from the fire service. So now obviously drones have come in there, and one thing we've been able to do is when you're on the ground and it's flooding, it's chaos. You can't really get an overview of what's happening. You don't know. You can see what you can see 50 yards ahead of you, but you can't see what the wider picture looks like. So what we've done a few jobs recently is we'll actually get the drone up above the flood area. So we can provide real-time monitoring. We can pick out potentially where people are. We can see where the water levels are rising. We can see where the flood has breached one of the defences. And we can be relaying that back in real time if the fire service guys are on scene with us. The other thing you can do, in fact, all of the DJI drones, even the cheaper sort of consumer drones, is you can do a 360 panorama image.
Yeah.
So you put the drone up at 400 feet and say, take me a 360 image. What it'll do is it'll spin around. It'll take, I think it's 35 images it takes, and it'll stitch them all together into one image. Now, we've done this recently on wildfires. I've then got that image on my phone, and I can just WhatsApp it to the fire incident controller. And he's going, wow. So straight away, he's got a full 360 panoramic image. He can scroll around, he can zoom in on things. And then it's, can I have that over here, Dave? He just WhatsApp it. So the last fire we worked at, we had a WhatsApp group set up. I'd spend 60 seconds every hour taking a 360 image, just send it onto this WhatsApp group, and straight away, everybody on the ground can see what's happening on a much larger scale without having to go anywhere near the fire. So it's that whole, as well as the real-time dynamic, let's zoom in and have a look at that part there, we can be providing that wider oversight of what's happening, not on a global level, but on a much broader scale. And it's that intelligence which helps the fire guys make the right decisions and keep their guys safe as well as the public.
And you're literally taking it like every so many, either like, let's say every 15 minutes, as an example, right? And now you've got 4 images across the hour. And now all of a sudden you do that over a course of a couple hours. And now you've got literally like a time lapse of everything in which direction it's going based on the winds and weather. And wow.
So that's for flooding. The other good thing with flooding is because the cameras now have got quite powerful zoom cameras on them. We can actually, we don't have to put our team members or the fire service in danger. We can put the drone up and we can search around the edge of the floodland or where we think the flood water is going to go and see if there are any people in there. So it gives us that advance notice. Well, look, we can see the water's coming up over here. We've got this campsite here or whatever it may be. It just gives you that overview. Whereas previously, guys would pull up, let's say, Google Maps and say, right, what does this area look like? But that's 2 years old, yeah. It's obviously not showing you where the water is. It's not showing you what's happening today. There's people coming there, or there's a new building over there. So it just gives them that real-time dynamic information to help them with the decision making. So
that is awesome.
This year we've been helping the local fire service out with the number of wildfires we've been having. We've had a very dry year so far in the UK, and we've seen, I think by the end of April, we'd seen more wildfires than we'd seen in the last 2 or 3 years put together. Now, we've been going up and helping, primarily we've been going in after the fire to map out any hotspots with the thermal camera. So even though the fire looks like it's out, we can see the area that's burnt. We can go in with the thermal camera and say, look, there's some ground in there which is still 4 or 5 degrees warmer than the rest of it and needs to be dealt with. So we've done half a dozen of those, and then at the end of April, we got another call. It was a Wednesday afternoon, and said, we've got another wildfire. Can you come up and give us a hand? So, yep, we'll be up there. And it was right at the top of our patch. I think it was 21 miles away as the crow flies. As I came over, as I left home, I could see this really strange cloud formation on the horizon. I think, oh, that's strange. I don't know what that is. And as we got closer and closer, this wall of smoke just got bigger and bigger. And we turned up on the site, and the smoke was possibly a mile high into the sky. And
wow.
It looked like the whole world was on fire. The whole place had gone up. And it was, the fire guys were working around the edge of it to try and contain it, but it was that full on. It was a damage limitation exercise by this point. Now, looking at the smoke, you couldn't see what was happening behind that because it was just this huge curtain of thick smoke. So I put the drone up. We had the monitor on the side of the vehicle so they could see what we could see. But as soon as we switched over to the thermal camera, wow, we could see straight through the smoke. We could see all the areas that were hot, that were burning. The drone tells us which way the wind's blowing. It tells us what speed the wind's blowing at. So in terms of, it then became more of a data capture exercise to feed into their intelligence as to where to deploy people. We live streamed this out to their controllers so they could see. They were sitting 20 miles away watching this in real time. Then their media department saw it, and it was, wow, can we have some of this footage for our social media, please? So we provided all of their social media content. So that was that afternoon. Now, this was all on open moorland, so it was basically just dead grass and heather burning. The problem was there was some large forestry plantations to the north of the site that they were concerned about. So after it got dark, we deployed up there, turned up at the RV, and the fire guys were just about to put 2 teams out onto the hill to see what was happening up in the woodland. We put the drone up before they went out, and it was wow. As we climbed, because we were based down near the reservoir, we couldn't see what was happening up above. As we got the drone over the top of the tree line, the whole place was just alight. It was 50-foot trees just going whoosh and just going up, sort of almost spontaneously combusting like that. So again, based on the intelligence we've been able to provide them with the drone, the decision was made, right, we're not putting anybody in there. It's too dangerous. It's dark. The terrain's uneven and the whole place is on fire. We'll come back in the morning and reassess what's happening. So we went home with 5 hours kip, came back the next morning, and most of the fire was out. What we were able to do is we were able to go along and, using the laser pointer, identify all of the hotspots that needed further work. We had a helicopter come in to do the water bombing. So basically, it was like some targeted mission. We were flying above the helicopter, pointing out the hotspots with a thermal camera, and they were basically flying off to the reservoir, filling the bucket up, and then targeting the areas we were highlighting with the thermal camera and the laser pointer. It worked really well. We were up there 3 days solid.
That's fantastic. That's actually, so you sent me a little YouTube clip of that exactly what you're talking in the Goyet Valley, Goyt, yeah. Right? Goyet Valley wildfire. That is, yeah. When you see that and what you guys can do, that's incredible. Same as the flooding, because you sent me another video on the flooding as well. So all the mapping section you can get there too. Yeah. That's awesome.
That something on that scale is nothing we'd seen before, and it's something you can really train for. You never get that size of fire in a trip. We had done some training exercise previously with the fire guys, but we were burning a few bales of hay just to see how the thermal picked up the heat and that sort of thing. But when you turn up and you've got, I think at one point, it took about 800 acres of land out, this fire.
Wow.
And obviously
that's a lot.
was far, far more than anything we'd ever come across. So normally when we're searching for people on the thermal, we're looking for 1 or 2 degrees difference in the temperature. Yeah. When we got to the fire, it was, whoa, the whole place is on fire. We had massive temperature ranges. So it was a really good learning exercise for us. Now, we'd been flying about half an hour at the start, and I got a text from one of the guys in our team, and it just said, "Are you guys flying up at this fire?" So I, "Yep." "Why? What's up?" He says, "A friend of mine's got a farm up there, and we can't get hold of his wife, and she's there with the 2 kids and the grandparents." So while we were flying, I sort of panned the drone around, and this farm was bang in the line of the fire was heading that way, straight for the farm. So we alerted the police. I think one of the fire crews had possibly just got there as this came through. But I think on one of the videos I sent you, this wall of smoke was just heading straight for the fire. Luckily, about 150 meters before it got there, the wind swung through 90 degrees. And you can actually see the burn pattern on the moor where the whole fire just up and turned through 90 degrees and headed north instead of west. And so I sent this guy some really worrying pictures of his farm. And you can see it's black up to the wall on the edge of his farm. And there's about 50 meters in the farmhouse. So, but again, when the drone gives us that oversight, which you just couldn't see from the ground. And if it's an area the guys aren't familiar with, there's a risk. Obviously, there's a risk to people on the ground. So, and the drone just lets us take away some of that risk and mitigate against it.
Yeah, phenomenal. I didn't even think about like half the stuff you're talking about. This is great. Like everything you could do to make it better, safer, get more information to the guys that are on the ground. Oh my gosh. And actually, you're even helping the guys in the air dumping water. Like, hey, this is the spot right here. It's such a like major benefit. Jeez,
I must give a shout out to the helicopter guys because they were awesome. I mean, on days 2 and 3, we'd set up the control point down near the reservoir because there was better access there. And obviously, that's the same place the guy was getting the water from. And I timed him every 3 minutes. He was coming in, picking up another 1.5 tons of water, disappearing off onto the mountain, coming back down. And he did this for 3 days non-stop. It was some fantastic flying.
Yeah, buddy. Wow.
We were going to go the next week and see how many fried fish there were left on the moor because he must have grabbed a few out of the reservoir.
Throw another fish on the barbie, will you? Oh, that's funny. Nice. Dang, man, that's great. All right, so let me divert again and go back to any other stories or anything that you remember that really like stood out to you that the drone was able to help you find. We're going to divert real quick to thank our sponsors. Ready Bar, originally made for astronauts, now designed for first responders and built for you. This high-performance meal bar provides complete nutrition without the sugar crash. A must-have for any helmet bag, swimmer bag, or everyday pack. Get yours today at getreadybar.com and use the promo code RESQ10 for 10% off. Ready Bar, zero crash, all fuel.
Yeah, so the one which we probably milk the most is it was actually the very first.
That's the one you milk the most. Okay, this is where all the funding comes in. You have the good, feel-good story. This is the one.
Yeah. So, in fact, it's almost 2 years ago now. We got a call out. I think it was 8 o'clock on a Wednesday morning. We've got a call out now. We very rarely get call outs at 8 o'clock on a Wednesday morning because most people are now walking by that point. And it was to a well-known call out location, and it's basically a 400-foot high cliff on our patch with a large cave in the top of it. The cave's quite easy to get into, so we get lots of people going in there visiting. So we get quite a few rescues there where people get crag fast on the cliff. So we turned up, it was probably half 8 by the time we got there, and we found the lady who the call out had been for. Now initially we'd been told she'd fallen off the cliff, which was going to be quite serious. She hadn't, but her dog had fallen off the cliff. So she'd been walking up on the top of the cliff, which is big. To be fair, it's just a big open field. And it's a bit like a Roadrunner movie. You've got a field, and then a 400-foot cliff just disappears off in the fresh air. So she'd gone up there for sunrise with 2 dogs for a walk, not having been to the area before. And one of the dogs ran off after a bird. And it ran straight into fresh air, straight into 400 feet worth of fresh air, and just disappeared off the edge of this cliff.
Oh my gosh.
So she got to the edge of the cliff, looked down, and no sign of the dog. So she actually made her way down to try and find the dog. Was called Figgy. And that's when she got injured. So I think she'd fallen over. She'd grazed her fingers and her ankle, I think. So we found her at the bottom of the cliff, totally distraught because there was no sign of a dog. We had a look. Now, the bottom 200 foot of the cliff is really steep and overgrown, but it was quite quiet. So everybody's quiet, listening, not a sound. We couldn't hear anything. So at this point, we're thinking, well, there's no way the dog can have survived that fall. We're looking to recover the dog. Because it was a known location, we didn't actually have the drone in the truck with us at the time. So we set a couple of abseils up from the top of the cliff, and we had two teams basically going up and down the cliff on the abseils looking for this dog. Again, nothing to be found. So by about 10 o'clock, we made a call and we got the drone brought along, got set up. The other guys were actually packing the truck up to go because we thought we're not going to find it. I put the drone up, searched the area where we'd been told it had gone off. Nothing. Now, we were up against it in time because as the thermal is great when everything's cold, but as the sun gets onto the rocks start to warm up and the rocks will actually give off more heat than a human body would. So we need to be searching it as early as we can with the thermal to be effective. Now, the clock's ticking now, and it got to about 11 o'clock. We've been flying for like 12 or 13 minutes, and I thought, I'm going to have a look around the edge of the cliff. And I got a heat signal, and it wasn't moving. I thought, it's just under the rock. I better check it out now. So I took the drone another 50 meters around, and I could see this heat signal was still there, and it didn't look like a rock at this point. But on the daylight camera, I couldn't see anything. It was the vegetation was that thick. So again, repositioned the drone, zoomed in a bit further, and we've been told the dog was wearing a blue collar. And just through a small gap in the foliage, I got a flash of blue. Oh, that doesn't look like it should be there. So again, got in a little bit closer with the drone, zoomed in, and there's the dog sitting there looking at us, looking like it was totally fine. It was just sitting there panting away, and it had been wedged in behind these rocks up on the crag for about 5 hours at this point. But it hadn't made a single noise the whole time we were there. So the team leader was stood watching the screen with me. I'm going, Martin, I found the dog. There might have been a few students in there. I did have to edit those out of the footage. Now, the lady was sat next to us, and up to this point she was being totally distraught. And then she heard we found the dog, and she burst out crying again, thinking we found the body on her. No, look, the dog's fine. So I showed her it, and her emotions just went through 180 degrees in a fraction of a second. Starts crying again, but obviously tears of happiness now because the dog's sitting there looking at us. But then we had to get in and get the dog out of there. So we packed all the rope kit away. So I'm going, guys, you're going to have to get the ropes back out. So they all went running back up to the top of the hill, set the abseil up, and abseil back down. Now, I dropped a laser pin on Figgy, so I knew she wasn't going anywhere. And the guys were abseiling down through all this vegetation, and they just couldn't see her. She wasn't making a noise, and it was literally 4 feet away by the time Toby, who had gone down the rope, could actually see the dog. So we'd taken up a large backpack, so he managed to grab the dog by the scruff of the neck, drop it in the bag, and carry on abseiling back down the hill. Now, realizing there was potentially some media benefit to this story, I actually filmed all of this from the drone.
Yeah, buddy.
So as he got to the bottom, I quickly put the drone away, and then we filmed the handover, and the lady was, I think elated is probably the right term. She was overcome with emotion when we handed the dog over. And so on the back of that, we've now got a little 2-minute video clip, which I think I've sent you there, which we play as part of all of our presentations, just to show the sort of work we can do and how effective it can be. my point of view, that was a bit of a turning point in the team, because had that been a person we were looking for, it's just shown we'd searched manually, we'd had people up and down the ropes, but the drone found in 10 minutes what we hadn't been able to find in 3 hours of doing it manually.
Wow.
So
yeah, that's impressive.
Finding Figgy, that's the story.
And you know, I'm gonna twist it just a little bit, because you know that everybody's like, "Oh, you found the dog! That's amazing!" Had you found a person, be like, "Hey, yeah, good job, whatever." And then, but you found the dog.
True. Yeah.
Everybody loves to find the dog. I mean, yeah. Oh my gosh, that is fantastic. Hey, if it works, use it. I'm all about it.
Yeah. We did. In fact, one of there's a show in the UK called Lost Dog Found Dog, and they do 3 or 4 dog rescues each episode. And there was a new series this year, and they got wind of our footage, so they actually opened the new series up with our story this time. So we did get to go back to the location 12 months later and sort of basically mock up how things had turned out on the day. So we did keep Figgy on the lead this time, though. So.
Oh my gosh, that is funny. Man, awesome. Brendan, thank you for sharing that one. That is fantastic. Brendan, this has been an absolute blast having you on. Thank you so much for sharing the amazing stories that you guys are doing, and really bringing the information for me about the drone use and how effective it is for you guys to do that. I think it's incredible. So next question is going to be, if you had a piece of advice to pass on to everybody that either A, wants to get into the drone stuff or that's doing the drone stuff, what would it be?
Get the hours in and get familiar with your kit and what it can do. Because, as I say, people think it's a simple case of picking the drone out of the box, putting it up at the end, spotting a casualty. It's, if you're very, very lucky, that works, but you've got to be a lot more thorough in terms of how you approach that search. Because what we don't want to do as a team is say we've searched an area and then 2 weeks later find somebody in there who we could have found. So it's flying the drone is part of the equation, but it's really understanding how you're going to best approach that search and increase that level of confidence when you've flown over an area that you haven't missed anybody left behind. Perfect.
It's good. That's good.
You don't have to have an expensive drone to do that. The software we're talking about can be loaded onto most of the commercially available drones at the moment to go and fly those sort of thorough grid patterns. So it's you don't have to be spending £10,000 on a drone. You can be spending less than that and spending the extra money on training the team up.
Right on. That's perfect. And as a little help on my end, and for anybody that's listening to this podcast, how can people help to donate, to help fund this program, to help your team, as well as everybody else's team across the UK?
Funding keeps us going. Without the funding, we wouldn't be able to go out and do these rescues. So most of the teams will have their own fundraising department, and the Mountain Rescuing in the Wales site, that's a sort of coordinating body. They do accept funding as well to help us manage these national programs. So the funding can either go directly to the national body, or on that link there are links to all of the 47 teams in the country, which will take you straight to their websites and let you donate to them directly.
Man, Brendan, thank you so much for joining me and sharing what you guys are doing, some of the stories, and again, getting me some information that I was unaware of. This is fantastic. So I learned a ton today, and I really appreciate that. Now, when I come out to the UK, I got a lot of you guys to call. We're getting together for some beer and some training. That's all there is to that.
We'll go and hide you in the woods and see how long it takes to find you.
I'm in. And I will have a GoPro on me, I promise. Right on. Brendan, I look forward to that, the day that happens. So thank you again.
Excellent. Thanks for having me on the show.
Anytime, brother. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are out of here.
Go.
Now, it's time for me to pull chocks and take off. But before I go, I'm always looking for the memorable rescues that people have done. If you have one that you're willing to share or know somebody who has a story, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to highlight it here at the Real ResQ. For everybody that is standing by for that SAR alarm, remember, those in distress are praying for a miracle. They are going to get you. So until next time, fly safe, and swim hard. Thank you for joining me today here at the Real ResQ Podcast, powered by Vertical Helicast. We'd also like to say thank you to our sponsors for this episode.
Switlik. No mission is the same. Why should your suit be? Introducing a new custom dry suit experience. Choose your fabric, colors, neck and wrist seals, zippers, pockets, collars, and so much more. Intelligent measuring prompts ensure the most tailored fit. Brought to you by Switlik Survival Products. For more information, visit us at www.switlik.com. Airbus. Airbus provides the most efficient helicopter solutions to its customers who serve, protect, save lives, and safely carry passengers in demanding environments. Its civil and military helicopters are flying all over the world, making missions possible. Visit airbus.com for more information.
And Ready Bar. Originally made for astronauts, now designed for first responders and built for you. This high-performance meal bar provides complete nutrition without the sugar crash. A must-have for any helmet bag, swimmer bag, or everyday pack. Get yours today at getreadybar.com and use the promo code RESQ10 for 10% off. Ready Bar. Zero crash. All fuel. All right, Brendan, little side question, like back-end question here is, what's the funniest thing you've ever had happen to you in a training environment?
With regards to the drones, one particular story comes to mind, and it's a good example of it, of why it's good to train the wider team in some basics of drone handling. So we've been doing an exercise with the drone search, and we threw a random scenario into the end, which is pilot incapacitation. So basically, I hit the deck and pretended I had some sort of medical incident with the drone hovering about 4 meters above me, just to see how the team would handle that. So I'm lying there pretending to be unconscious on the floor. Call goes out on the radio. The drone pilot's collapsed. We need some people in here. So about half a dozen guys turned up, and they all stood there, and nobody knew how to get the drone down. So I'm thinking, how are they going to handle this here? So again, pretending to be unconscious, I heard, right, I've got a big stick. Let's whack it with that big stick. That'll bring it down at the end. Now, at that point, I suddenly regained consciousness.
Do not whack that. That is 10,000 pounds. No.
But that was the only way the guys knew. Obviously, this was back in the early days. Now we have a bit of a wider training program to at least show the guys how to get it back on the ground if they need to in a hurry in that sort of incident.
Oh my gosh, I'm glad I didn't whack it with a stick. That would have been terrible. Buddy, thank you for sharing that. That's awesome.
No problem.